Hey everybody, welcome back to another Godzilla Battle Line video, and I got a deck for you guys. I got one for you, and it's a killer. If you've spent any time on my live streams or my Discord, you know I have been on the Zetton train since day one. I've always said that he's a pretty good defensive unit, and that he just doesn't have the right deck to facilitate him being super useful. He's an easy piece to cut from any deck build. However, Ale Enchiladas, the player, just got his 300 wins with Zetton, alright? This is the deck he's been using, and it absolutely cooked me when we fought. And I was trying, and he cooked me. Asked him for the deck. Now I'm in the kitchen cooking up the other players, alright? So let's talk about it. I'm a big fan of Zetton. I'm a big fan of this deck. Let's just go over it. This is the set list. You know, sometimes I like to give you guys a video that has... I'm trying to think of the word, like recommended suggestions. I'm not doing that with this video because it's not my deck. This is one that was crafted by someone else, so I'm giving you the list that they used, and that is also the list that I used. So Ultima Leader. Ultima Leader's got really good range. You paired Zetton on defense. Zetton's going to take a lot of the aggro off of your leader, and since he's a 4-star leader, Ultima, he can't afford to take as many hits as something like a G89 or a Gigan, right? So he's a leader, can't take too many hits. Zetton in the front can take a lot of the aggro, and he's got really good range. Most characters that are fighting Zetton can be hit by Ultima. It depends on where they are. You could, I guess, put Dimension Tide in here so the Psychic Chorus and pull things closer so that Ultima can't hit them. Because you can see with that Kumo, like, he's already really far range, so he's going to attack Zetton from far away from a point where he cannot get hit by the Ultima. So Dimension Tide can help mitigate some of that, which is pretty fine. So, Ultima, good leader. We've talked about him in the past a bunch. I don't really want to spend a ton of time on him. We have in here Naranga and Kumo Augment. Now, Kumo and Fourth Angel and GMK are in this deck. And the three of them, I would consider at the top of the meta this season. Like, no shot that they aren't, right? At least you can make an argument for Kumo and the Fourth Angel are two of the top 3 characters in the game right now. You could make an argument that GMK is in there. I think GMK is in there. There are people who think, you know, Final Wars Godzilla is better. There are some people that think, you know, Kiryu's better, like whatever. So, yes, this deck does utilize 3 of the best characters in the game. Of course it does. We're using Zetton, and we got Naranga in here. Now, Naranga is and has been a pretty decent character for quite some time. He's been in the game now for over a year, right? This month is the, or maybe this month is the year of Naranga, or the month of Naranga. So him and Ultraman have had now their 1-year anniversary in the game. A lot of people have Naranga, especially if you've been playing since back then, probably have him at 30 or around enough tokens to get him to level 30. He's great. His stun is awesome. The invisibility is great. He's not, you know, getting one over on the Leos. He's not really getting one over, you know, he's not stunning the... I mean, he can actually stun the Kumo before Kumo sees him. So Naranga is a pretty valuable piece. A lot of people are using him instead of Anguirus. I like him in this deck because Naranga and Kumo Augment are 2 stuns. They stun at different intervals, so you can pretty consistently lock down enemy characters. And he's a 4, so that's also really good. You could try to use Anguirus in here instead of Naranga, but it's not going to have the same effect. He's just going to be eating a ton of damage when Naranga and Kumo just perpetually are just stun-locking characters, right? So you pair them, you get a long-range stun, you get a close-range stun. You can kind of keep your opponent's characters locked up, mitigate that damage. You have Psychic Cores to heal up your guys while your opponents are stunned up. You have the Fourth Angel, because insanely bulky, huge... he's got a huge health pool, he's got massive damage, and he's got that really great explosion. GMK in here, obviously one of the greats. He has that debuff on spawn and on death, which is phenomenal. He's got good range, good AoE, just all around a killer team, right? So, Zetton. That's who we're here to talk about. The whole team is great, and it will facilitate a W. Why is Zetton in this deck? Well, I didn't ask Ale Enchiladas that. But I've been using this deck a fair bit. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it was because they were using their... they wanted the Zetton title, right? So that's why they put Zetton in here. Inadvertently created a really good deck. The reason I like Zetton in this deck is because he provides fantastic defense for Ultima. The two of them are very long range. He has very good aggro. Your opponent has to end up putting in a lot of resources into taking down Zetton, especially if yours is at a reasonable level. Mine's only level 8, and people struggle to take it down. He doesn't do a lot of damage. I'm not using him for his damage output. I'm using him because he's going to keep the enemy units away from my leader. Ultima will do enough damage to mitigate, for the Zetton. So Zetton's hitting every 1.2 seconds for just a little bit of damage. Ultima's hitting every 3.6 for a lot of damage. You put Zetton up in front of Ultima, not behind. You always put Zetton in the front of the leader, and you are going to just soak up a ton of damage, and then when he dies, he explodes. He does an insane amount of explosive damage depending on how high up those bars are. So if he's built up into the red or into that final bar, and there's a big wave coming at you, okay? You play Kumo, you play GMK, or you play the fourth angel or whatever, that Zetton explodes on the enemy, he's going to wipe a substantial portion of their health bar away. So keeping Zetton on your leader for that, see how Ultima right there is in the red of the Zetton? That means he is within Zetton's protection range. That is not necessarily Zetton's hitbox, that's where Zetton is firing. Any enemy that is coming down towards the Zetton, they're going straight for him. The hitbox on him is ridiculous. Frankly, I think it might actually be broken. But it's good. It's really good for defense. Now, do I recommend that you would use this deck if you don't have, significant levels on these characters? I think that this deck is honestly, to Ale's credit, a really good deck just for general play. Swap Zetton out with whatever. I am using Zetton in this deck. I'm using Zetton today in the arena. I will continue to be using Zetton today in the arena. I might even, call me madman, put G materials into my Zetton because I'm having a ton of fun with this deck. I have been a Zetton supporter from day one, and this deck makes really great use of him, and I'm getting a ton of wins with it. Now, is this meta? Probably not. I don't think that Zetton is going to be meta for a while. I think that we maybe are on the cusp of having a really good team that can facilitate Zetton and what he does. But I think at the moment, I feel like it's too much of a risky play for most players. If you're a veteran player, been playing for about a year, you have levels on Zetton, you have levels on Naranga, the fourth angel, go for it. I think that my levels definitely help me get wins, of course. I do think the structure of this deck, the theory behind it, is sound. I do really enjoy the deck. Give it a shot if your levels are lower than mine. If your levels are higher than mine, I highly recommend you at least give this a try, see if you like it. But I honestly think that this is a pretty good general play deck. You can swap out Zetton, you can swap out Naranga. I mean, and then it's just the three best characters in the game, the Psychic Chorus and the Kamacuras, and then you put Zetton Naranga. It's just an easy shell that you can throw anything in. But I really like having Zetton and Naranga there because you can really frustrate the absolute hell out of your opponents. I mean, I'm getting takeoffs left and right, not even just from in this video, right? I'm getting takeoffs constantly or come-ons because people don't expect the Zetton and they have trouble getting through Zetton. And then when Zetton explodes on their push, they're like, come on, because you basically just decimate their entire bar. Zetton and that fourth angel, ridiculous combination right there, especially late in the game right here. You can see if the Zetton was maybe a little bit closer up, he would be pinging the leader. And then his explosive, it does different damage to the leaders, but it does a substantial amount of damage. It's not a joke. So, I'm a big fan of this deck. I think that Ale did a good job putting it together, and I'm having a ton of fun. Like an unreasonable amount of fun using Zetton in this deck. He's been super great for some really, really close defensive battles where it's really down to the wire, and the enemy just cannot target my leader because they're too busy getting eaten up by the Zetton. I'm liking him a lot. I recommend you give this a shot. I don't think this is super meta. I don't think it's super busted, but I think it is a generally well-balanced deck that plays into the strengths of all the characters on the list. So, that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all on the next one. Bye-bye.